Cheers! Welcome to an exciting video of a chunky sketchbook tour. So chunky. Okay, that one was more satisfying of a sound. I like to keep all my old sketchbooks in this little tin right here that I got from my uncle. And you can kind of see that these have like the same vibe, you know, black stickers, chunky, but this is like half the size. Almost exactly half the size. So we'll just get right into it and I'll talk a little bit about like my sketchbook practice, my art practice, just random stuff while we're looking through the sketchbook. And we're into it. My last sketchbook was smaller than this one. I started it kind of with mixed media and then I ended it with focusing on line work using ink, and that's kind of how I continued into starting this sketchbook, was using line work and using ink. I was trying to improve my line work, and by really focusing on it, I definitely did improve my line work, and it was very satisfying to watch that process. Obviously, not everything was good, like this face that I definitely wanted to cover up. I was looking for kind of like brush inks. Brush inks? What are they called? Line work brushes. I don't know what is going on that I can't remember what those are called right now. But I wanted that brushy vibe, but then I also sometimes like it when it has a shorter stub, so I was going back and forth between those kinds of things. The content that I usually drew is like faces. I really want to get improved at faces, and like I'm always drawing whimsical shit like animals, nature vibes, and people. Fruits, also adding some foods in there and stuff. One thing that's kind of common for me to do is to use Pinterest, and then I'll just open up my board that has like all my drawing references on it, and if I feel like practicing a face, I'll just pick a face or whatever other references I find. Sometimes I'll combine references together. Another place that I'll get references from is just from real life when I'm taking pictures of things, and I gather them together in like a references album that I can go to, or when my family send me pictures that I find really inspiring. Like right now in my camera roll, I have this photo of a glistening blue bug that my mom sent me that's like passed away and curled up, and it is very cool looking. I have some octopuses and squids from the aquarium that my brother went to saved in my reference library. I really like to do a recap page of a book I read where I just kind of draw something from it. It helps me a lot with remembering the books that I read and like the elements and themes of the books that I read. If you are looking for a brushwork, gosh, I settled on the Pentel pen as like my go-to one. I really appreciate that it's refillable, which a lot of other ink pens aren't, and they die kind of quickly if you are using them actively. So this is the next book. It's called 𝓤𝓸𝓸𝓽. It's a little map kind of the area, and the brush on the Pentel pens is like quite long and nice. So I am kind of looking for a shorter stub one now as well. It really depends on how much control you want in the picture, I feel like. Sometimes when I'm like first sketching something out and I'm not sure exactly how I want the lines to sit, like a super big brush pen just isn't it necessarily. I'm sticking little sticky tabs on some of the pages depending on if it's an inspiration for a painting that I want to do or if it's an inspiration for some kind of an art product that I want to do. I've been wanting to start these collage like printables basically. I think it's going to be one of the first things I release on my Etsy shop. So I'm tabbing some of these pages that I find inspiration for that. This is a book series that I read called Airborne. That's the name of one of the books. I definitely recommend these. They're like youth books, but they're very, very good. And that seems rude to all youth books. Like it's literally like my favorite category. I don't know why I always go towards that category of books, like graphic novels as well as like teen novels and even like kids novels. There's something about the mystical world. This book called In the Lives of Puppet by T.J. Klune. I really highly recommend checking out this author and the books they make. They create such a magical, fantastical worlds and relationships, and then also like the story of these independent characters. They're really, really good, and I want to continue reading some of them. I've read like 2. And also the covers are made by somebody who does like, not like stop motion art, but like they create like miniatures and then they photograph them, and it looks so incredible. That's what made me start reading the books in the first place, because I definitely do indeed judge a book by its cover, because I'm just such like an artistic person. I always gravitate towards things that I find really beautiful. A few pages ago, it was kind of where the transition to more mixed media elements in my sketchbook started, when I pointed at that face in that book that we were just talking about, and it had like that little magazine cut out in the cheek. I feel like that was like the transition page where I started wanting to add more mixed media elements again. I highly recommend this book, Fantastical Drawing. I started using it to practice my faces and anatomy of the body. That's kind of like the next thing I started working on for the body, was the body, I guess, more so. What the heck kind of sentence is that? And my next step is kind of like in motion, which is definitely a little bit intimidating, but it feels less intimidating now than it has ever before, so that's really exciting. Just taking things step by step, and you can see the way that you improve over time. This is the beginning of Peachtober from 2023, and I really like these paintings, the way that they turned out. When I'm working on a painting, I usually like to do my sketch in pencil crayon and just kind of get a loose idea of what I want the painting to be. I don't know why pencil crayon is always my favorite for when I'm prepping for a painting. Whereas when I'm doing like a sketchbook page, I tend to use a lot of different mediums. When I'm feeling a little bit stuck, maybe, I just like to go in there and mess around, if it means rubbing some charcoal all around, or some oil pastels is what I meant to say, like in that last page, and then I put faces to the oil pastel. Or sometimes I will just take any kind of tool and just allow my hand to freely move across the page. I always want to keep kind of a balance with my sketchbook. At the end of the day, it's like a safe place for me to go to and like just be able to create things, but at the same time I do like making pretty spreads sometimes. But if I find myself getting too into like having every spread be pretty, then I'll like just make sure that I don't keep that up, and that I'll do something just for the feeling of it, because I think that both aspects are really important. I think it's cool to like cultivate your style and how you want things to look, but to also allow for your creativity to have like a freedom to it, because that's where you can find a lot of new ideas and things that just naturally feel right to you. It is crazy sometimes what you draw when you like don't even know what you're gonna draw, and then you come out with something that is so like full of inspiration. That's so magical of an experience. Magical. I was just watching Superstore, and it reminded me of the part where they're all like, I'm Kelly, no, I'm Kelly. This is the part where we're starting to get into like every spread looking good, and I'm not mad about it. I know I just talked about all this stuff, but like I wasn't even feeling stressed about it. It just kept happening. This is an Easter spread. And then from that fantasy book, I started working on some more creatures from it, like these horses and bats and stuff. I've actually never drawn a horse before this. This is a color study I did for one of my bigger paintings, which I've started doing sometimes if I really feel lost for what kind of colors that I want to be using. Any prep work for painting is like really helpful for the actual painting process to go more smoothly, and for it to come out looking like how you want it to look like. For scrapbooking, I started doing spreads based on like a theme or something, like it's springtime. And I was just trying to experiment with adding as much mixed media elements as I could. So I would do spreads where I would just try to add as many elements as possible. I don't really know how I stay motivated for sketchbooking exactly. It feels like I can just sense when I haven't done it for a while and I need to do it again. And then I'll just like look up a random reference and just start drawing stuff if I have no immediate inspiration. I always like doodling and moving my hand and sketching. But I can understand like the pressure of it a little bit. But I just feel so like passionate about it, and I love it so much that I want to do it and I want to keep doing it. But before like maybe like 3 years ago or something, I didn't really have a regular sketchbook practice, and I just wanted to improve my art, and then it just kind of came full flow, like just consistently making art for like years now. I think one thing that brings a lot of like inspiration in a way is working with mixed media, because when you aren't feeling inspired with one thing, you can move to a different thing, and it's not like you're like stopping that journey of growth for that one thing. It just like, I mean, you have to take a break sometimes, right? So why not work on something else, and then that inspiration hits you again for that other thing. Like there was like a good few weeks where I didn't feel like painting, but it's not really that big of a problem. I can just work on something else, and then when I feel like painting again. And there's also like a discipline aspect to it. Just because you don't feel like doing something, you can push yourself to do it, and then a lot of times you'll just fall into a place where you feel comfortable doing it. Does that make sense? I feel like I kind of said that in a really vague way where it didn't really make sense. One thing I do if I feel no inspiration, but I know that I want to do some kind of work or artwork, is I'll set a really nice environment for myself, and then I'll just allow myself to chill in that environment. I'll set a Pomodoro timer for like 25 minutes, and then that's just very helpful because it sets this kind of environment for you where you just chill in that space for 25 minutes, and within that time I like basically 100% of the time start working, and like it's not as bad as I think it's gonna be. I get kind of into the flow, and then once you do one thing, you feel the inspiration to do more things naturally. And we've reached the close of my sketchbook. Goodbye 2023-2024 sketchbook. You treated me well. It was completed in 697 days and covered in 40 stickers and suffered from one broken spine, which was taped back together. I hope you guys really enjoyed the video, and the comments are open if you want to tell me anything about your sketchbook practice, your art practice, any creative and cool ways to use sketchbooks, because I'm trying to get into like more different ways of using sketchbooks now.